Hey guys, welcome back to another Global Politics revision video. Today we're going to be going through a few different topics. So we're going to be going through governments, realism, and IGOs. And this is all within topic 1, power and international relations, specifically framing global politics. So, subnational and local government. In most states, lots of the authority for planning, managing, and allocating resources is transferred from the central government to regional or local government departments. This is because they're closer to the people and are in a better position to understand how local communities function and how best to meet their needs. These local leaders usually deal with issues that impact the daily lives of citizens and stakeholders, such as access to childcare, sanitation concerns, or traffic congestion. In democracies, national, subnational, and local leaders are chosen in elections. In an autocracy or dictatorship, subnational and local government would likely not have the same power as they would in a democracy. This is because the central government and sole leader will likely have more power over the local governments and control their actions. Subnational and local governments work together on issues like healthcare, education, and transportation, often with federal funding or regulations guiding state implementation. Now we're going to move on to realism. So realists explain power politics largely in terms of a state's hard power capabilities. They see states as locked-in competition with each other and believe that states are the preeminent actors in all situations. Each state wants to protect its national security against threats from other states in an anarchic world order. And they want to ensure state survival by maximizing their power and security. There are two types of realism, classical and structural. Classical realism attributes state behavior to human nature, suggesting leaders' ambitions drive power politics. Structural realism focuses on the anarchic structure of the international system as the primary influence on state behavior. There are also two types of structural realism: offensive realism, where they aim to expand their global power, and defensive realism, where they aim to merely defend themselves against external threats and maintain the status quo. And we'll go over those in more detail. John Mearsheimer is highlighted as a key theorist in realism, particularly in the context of his book, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics. He argues that states are compelled to compete with each other to gain power at the expense of others and to ensure they do not lose power. His theory aligns with offensive realism, where the pursuit of power is seen as essential to state security. So focusing on structural realism, they believe that power comes from two sources: the material capabilities a state controls, such as military resources, such as armored divisions and nuclear weapons, or latent power, based on a state's latent wealth and size of its overall population. And then 5 assumptions that structural realists make are that states operate in an anarchic global system. So there's no central authority that stands above states in the system. And the second one is all states possess some offensive military capability. So each state has the power to inflict harm upon its neighbors or other states, but the capacity varies massively between different states. The next one is states can never know the intentions of other states. So states ultimately want to know whether other states are determined to use force or alter the balance of power, revisionist states, or whether they're satisfied enough with it and have no interest of using it, status quo states. However, it's almost impossible to figure out another state's intentions with a high degree of certainty. Unlike military capabilities, intentions can't be empirically verified, and they're in the minds of the decision makers. And then the main goal of states is survival. So states obviously have other goals like prosperity or protecting human rights, but the primary goal of states is survival, because if a state does not survive, it can't achieve any of its other goals. And finally, states are rational actors. So states are capable of coming up with sound strategies that maximize their prospects for survival. They may miscalculate from time to time because states operate with imperfect information in a complicated world. Sometimes they do make mistakes, but their main focus is to be rational in terms of their perspective. Offensive versus defensive realism. So offensive realists argue that it makes sense for states to pursue as much power as possible, whereas defensive argue that it's unwise for states to maximize their share of power, as the global political system will punish them if they attempt to gain too much. Offensive realists say that states should pursue hegemony where possible because that's the best way to guarantee survival, whereas defensive argue that pursuit of hegemony is foolish. Instead, states should strive for what Waltz calls an appropriate amount of power. And then, as I've mentioned before, key writers are John Mearsheimer for offensive and Kenneth Waltz for defensive. Moving on to IGOs. So IGOs are entities composed of member states that cooperate on common interests, such as maintaining peace, promoting economic development, and addressing global challenges such as climate change, security, and equality. They maintain peace and economic development globally by facilitating dialogue, enforcing international laws, providing conflict resolution mechanisms, and promoting economic cooperation among states. They're considered extremely essential in an increasingly globalized world as they help manage the complexities of globalization by providing platforms for cooperation, setting international standards, and addressing transnational issues that individual states can't solve alone, for example, climate change that requires a large amount of work. They influence decisions of individual states through agreements, regulations, and norms that member states are expected to follow, often influencing domestic and foreign policies. They facilitate cooperation between states by providing a structured environment for states to negotiate, collaborate, and find consensus on various different international issues, making cooperation more predictable and systematic. They address global issues like climate change and pandemics by coordinating international responses, setting global agendas, mobilizing resources, and providing forums for collective action against global challenges. One really effective example of an IGO is the United Nations. The UN is one of the most prominent IGOs, playing a central role in maintaining international peace and security, promoting human rights, and supporting sustainable development worldwide. IGOs also promote international law and human rights by creating treaties, monitoring compliance, providing platforms for dialogue, and sometimes enforcing international laws through sanctions or other measures. However, they do face challenges in enforcing their decisions among member states. Challenges include differing national interests, lack of enforcement mechanisms, limited funding, and dependence on the voluntary cooperation of member states. They differ in their structure and purpose from other international entities, as IGOs are formal treaty-based organizations with specific member states, unlike informal international coalitions or NGOs that don't have state membership or binding authority. There are different types of IGOs that focus on different issues. For example, the WTO focuses on trade, NATO focuses on security, the UN focuses on environment, among other things. The World Bank and the IMF focuses on economic interests, WHO focuses on disease, and the UN also focuses on climate change. Thanks for watching.